So here we are. Welcome to the fiscal year 27 Technical Assistance Grant Program application training. We will go over some really good things and information, and hopefully, like I said, you can submit you something very, very strong. This is just our disclaimer that we will be recording this, and you will have access to it on our website once it's posted. So what is our technical assistance program? The technical assistance grant program assists local governments and nonprofits with operating costs that are associated with local housing and community revitalization efforts. And we do have a note here that the General Assembly must approve these funds during the 2027 legislative session before they're finalized, but we see that not being an issue. It's just our disclaimer, our note for you all. So as you know, the application is currently open and it will close March 20th at 5 p.m. Our suggestion is that you do not wait until the 20th if you do not have to, and to get that application in as soon as you are done, as soon as it's ready, because we all know how that last minute rush and deadline can sometimes cause issues, and we're not necessarily active after 5 to help you. So if you can get that in before the deadline. So who's eligible to apply? The Technical Assistance Grant Program is open to local governments and nonprofit organizations. Eligible activities include salaries, and that is for new employees, which we like to see, hires to show that, capacity growth and that such. We have also funded salaries of those existing, but new employees are better. Professional services and contracts, so that will be any of your consultant fees. Technology costs, examples of that will be like ADA compliant website upgrades and things like that for your organization, and then other related administrative expenses. Your project must be in or serve residents of a priority funding area. We'll get more into that mapping a little later. So your project requirements, of course, we just said that you must be located in or serve residents of a priority funding area. You should align with the local sustainability action plan or support activities that are related to capital projects receiving funds from other department agencies. More funding details about the program. So your max grant request is $50,000. That's of course no guarantee that you'll receive that much, but you can request that much. We do ask you to, be selective and specific with your budget and explicitly state like what those funds will cover and how those costs relate directly to your project. We want you to be realistic about those asks so that you can be certain that your award will be utilized within the 1-year time frame, which I'm going to mention coming up. There is no funding match required for this program. So you do not have to have a match. However, if you do include funds in your budget, which we'll address later, you will have to show support for that. All of your projects or activities should be completed within 1 year. So again, the grant is just for 1 year. So all of this kind of goes together. You think about just that 1 year time, what can you get accomplished and how much will you think you need to do so? And this technical assistance grant is an operating reimbursement grant. That means there are no capital projects that are supported through the TAG grant. However, we do have programs that will support capital costs, such as our state revitalization programs. Division priorities. So some of you who applied last year may have noticed that we added a question and we've kind of shifted the focus a little bit for the TAG program. The priorities for the division and also the governor, which we'll touch on a little bit, these are the projects that we are focused on funding. These line items, so increased production and mixed income, excuse me, increased household and generational wealth, accelerated elimination of vacant properties, particularly in the city, creating safer, more appealing public spaces, and revitalizing Maryland's diverse main streets. You can find more information about those specific priorities on our websites. There are links that take you to places where you can familiarize yourself with those topics, because those are the things that we are looking for during this round. And it's super important because of the competitiveness of this grant, which I forgot to mention. I'll just stop really quickly just to give you some perspective. Our last round, we received 217 applications. And this, you should remember, or we may not know this is $1 million program. So that was $10 million worth of requests for just $1 million that we have to give out, which means this program is now extremely competitive. So with that in mind, you want to be sure that your project or your program that you are applying for aligns with those reinvestment priorities directly, and you don't really have to like force your project or your program to fit one of them. That's how you'll know for sure whether or not what you are considering applying for is going to weigh up against, other applications. So definitely pay close attention to these priorities. The department will also give additional consideration, to projects in our enough areas and our just communities. And there's more information available about that too, Christine, correct? Yes, online. You can get more information to find out whether or not you fall into either of those categories. So now we're moving into required documents for all applicants. All applicants should upload, and we'll get deeper into that a little later, but required documents for all applicants would be your project location map. There's a link on our site that can guide you right to that, where you put in your address and you can get that map. We also need proof of site control. Now, that's likely not to be the case for the majority of you, considering this is an operating grant, but there are those one-off cases in which you will need to provide site control. And then applicant and or other funding letters of commitment or support. So this kind of goes back to your budget and that conversation about match. If you include additional funds in your budget, then you will have to supply applicant and funding letters. And that's whether you, the applicant or organization / are the ones supplying the money, additional funding to the project, or if there are other sources, we will need to see proof of that. And that's for all applicants. For our nonprofits, we also need you to upload or include your IRS determination letter, your articles of incorporations and any amendments, your bylaws and any amendments. We need a boards list as well, an updated boards list. This is just these organizational documents, and then we will show you later on where that information goes. And there's your note. It's uploaded in your organizational uploads section, which you can access through your profile other ways. But again, we'll get into that a little later. Some key terms and definitions that you should be on the lookout for and considering when you are applying that will help the reviewers understand your project. When you come across program or project name, that is just a brief title describing your program or your project. Examples: Highlandtown Storefront Makeover Project. Straight to the point, simple. This is where you want to just get the general idea across. Program or project description. This is going to be a brief description providing details on the scope of your project and then what community challenges or needs will be addressed. Your project scope is the part of the project planning that involves documenting list of specific goals, deliverables, functions, deadlines, things of that nature. Community. When you come across questions that have the term community, what we want to know is who are the people that you are serving? How does your program or your project, like what is the demographic, the location? Why is what you are applying to do, your program or project, specifically important to this group of people? And then what are their challenges or strengths or needs of that particular area? Specific. Your goals should be well-defined and focused. We've already mentioned measurable. This should be the numbers, the metrics. This is how you track your progress and how you are able to explain to your reviewer what you have accomplished and what you plan to accomplish with this project or program, depending on what you're applying for. And realistic, the goal should be achievable given the resources, timeline, and any possible challenges. So we really want you to consider when you are applying for the technical assistance grant that you understand that the grant is only for a year. So we want you to be realistic about what you can accomplish in that year and given the amount that you may receive, right? So you can ask for 50. Well, you should always also have in the back of your mind, I may not receive the 50. I may receive half of that or lower. So ask yourself, will you be able to sustain your project if you receive lower? And if you can, are you prepared to do that if not given what you requested? And in the time frame that you've given us. So all of that should be taken into consideration. Positive change. Your project should improve something that you can measure. Access to services, increased homeownership, access to green spaces, the type of traffic that you receive in your business district or your main street or wherever you are. Those are the numbers. That's the change that we like to see. And then your impact. So where you think measurable as your data and your numbers, we want your impact to be your outcome. So with this project or program, how has it bettered your community or better, the condition of wherever you're working in, and how has it served you? What are the overall outcomes of the project? Okay, now we're going to move into our sample documents and resources, and I will pass it to Christine to go over this with you next.
Great, thanks, Alyssa. Hi, everyone. Christine McPherson with the Department of Housing and Community Development. This section, we're just going to go over a few of the sample documents or pages that you will see within the application. As Alyssa mentioned earlier, you're going to be required to download a map of your project, of where the community that you're serving. So on the Maryland Department of Housing and Community Development website, you can use the search option and type in neighborhood revitalization mapper, which you see along the black header of this map, which will get you right to this mapping tool. And you can put in the address. For instance, we put in this screenshot, you can see we have 2 North Charles Street. That's where our office is located. So, and then you'll see that the pin dropped where we're located. And so you can put on and off different mapping map layers on it. So we're definitely looking for sustainable community and priority funding areas, as Alyssa already stated earlier in the training. If you believe your project falls in an enough or just communities designation area, you can have those filters on as well. And so they will show us exactly what areas your project is in. So this is a required upload in your application. Another sample we wanted to provide you all with is a sample budget. You'll see this chart. It'll be blank in your application. For this example, there's 4 different line items, and you can see that they're requesting is this second column. They're requesting this. for operating. The third column would be that's titled applicant amount. That would be if your organization was contributing anything to the project. The third column that says other source amount might be an outside source, like another funder. So it might be another state agency, it might be a community foundation, a philanthropic group. And if you add any sources into the other source amount column, then you're required in that column to the right, name of other sources, to put the name of that other source. So if I were for the mural artist, if I was going to do an other source amount of 15,000, then I would need to name it, and I might name it the Maryland State Art Council, because that's a grant that we would have received. We're really not looking in the budget for you to put too many or any at all pending grants. It would be best in the competitive nature of this program at this point that you're putting other sources that are confirmed, not pending. So that's just a tidbit about that. The budget narrative, this section, I know it's really hard to see, so I apologize. We can't make it large enough, but this section, the budget narrative section, is right below the chart that we were just looking at. It's really important that you put thorough information in this section. Don't write something simple like, please refer to the budget above. This is your place to tell us more about each line item. So if the line item is about park benches, you want to put park benches into a park, then if you have anything to tell us about those park benches, this is where you tell us. If it's about a mural, then this is where you give us information about the cost of the mural, that the mural cost includes materials, the artist fee, things of that nature. You give us a little bit more information around each line item of your budget. Timeline. Timeline is really important. You'll have 3 categories in the timeline that are required. They're kind of grayed out on this sample. The first one is the program project commencement date. That could be the date that your grant agreement is executed. So you would imagine it to be executed or to start. So you can write that in as your beginning date. As Alyssa has said a few times in the training so far, this is a 1-year grant. So if your start date is April 1st, then your end date would be 1 year from that. So if it's April 1st of 2025, then your end date is going to be on or about April 1st, 2026. Now, it doesn't mean that you couldn't do the 1-year project in 6 months. And if that's what you're on target to do, it is totally fine for you just to create a 6-month timeline. What we're saying here is you should not be showing an 18-month, 2-year, 3-year timeline. You don't have that length to do this work. The other 2 items that are required for you to put in is the completion date and the final report date. Final report for this award is always due 30 days after it expires, so keep that in mind. And then that middle section is a place that you're going to put 2 or 3 additional timeline benchmarks, right? So it gives the reviewers the idea of how you are thinking about moving this project along from start to finish. If you're not making it clear in your timeline that you've thought this out, that will, certainly affect the review process. Talk for a moment here about the review criteria and scoring. The reviewers this year will be evaluating the applications on a 5-point scoring scale that overall measures the strength and readiness of the application. They'll assess holistically, considering alignment with program goals, which Alyssa talked a little bit about our DHCD priorities, your feasibility to actually get this done in the time frame that you have, the capacity that your organization has to do it, and also the anticipated impact, how you're talking about what your measurable outputs will be. of the project in your community. In addition to the 5 points that you'll receive as the basic review of each application, you have the ability to receive up to 10 bonus points if you're in an enough area, if you're in a just community. Again, those are all things that you can look up on the DHC Neighborhood Utilization Mapper. Carolyn, you're not muted. Can you please make?
Sorry.
And the projects, if projects are located in a Main Street, Maryland, or Baltimore City Main Street, you will also receive an additional 5 points. So there definitely is some opportunity with your application to take a look about where your projects are taking place to pick up some additional bonus points in the review. I think that concludes my section. Next, Alyssa's going to walk you through the actual application in the DHCD project portal, so you can become familiar with that.
All right, back again. Thank you, Christine. So accessing the application, this is when you've read through the training and now you're ready to go. So when you're ready to apply, you want to be sure that you are registered in the project portal. You will, if you are not registered, click new user register here. You want to fill out your information there, and then it'll take us, not us literally, but our team, about 24 to 48 hours to approve it. However, they're really quick with it, so chances are you may not even have to wait that long. If you run into any issues while you are using the system, you can contact them, and you see their email address on the bottom left, in our system support.dhcd@maryland.gov. You send an email there, they're really responsive, 24, 48 hours on that as well. So once you're ready to apply, you have your login, you do what you do, log in, and then you will be taken to your dashboard. I did come across a few emails that said that they did not see it in their opportunities. I don't know if that was a technical thing or not, but after we get off of this call, if you try and you're still having issues, definitely reach out to system support for that. So when you are ready and on your dashboard, you will see Community Development and Services Application FY 2027. That's where you will access the tag application. So the CDS application is shared by multiple grants, but when you get into it, and I'll show you that, you will have the opportunity to select which grant it is that you are applying for. So click my opportunity. Well, when you see my opportunities, you will click on the grant name. You'll receive this pop up here, and you want to proceed. It will then put the application, the initiated application, on your, or in your My Tasks, excuse me. Once it's in your My Task, you'll notice different labels here. This organization label is what will take you to your organization's profile if you click that link. The link underneath of name is what will get you access to the application that you initiated so that you can complete your pages to submit. The first and most important thing to upload would be your organizational documents, which we explained in the middle, the ones that are required for all applicants and the ones that are required for nonprofits. You can access this section two ways. You would see your name here in the right-hand corner and use the drop down to go to your profile. Or like I said, you can access it from the link in the My Task. Once you get to this landing page, you'll see organization information, which was just your org info. You can click organization members, which will show you anyone who has any kind of access to your organization's profile. You have organizational uploads. This is the page where you're going to select your organization type and upload. Once you'll see, once you select that and save, it will populate all of the sections that you need based on your category. So if you're a nonprofit, you save, you'll then see all of the additional pages open up for you for things like your articles and such. Um, One thing to note, and I'll probably say this a lot during this section of the training, is to save often and always, because anytime you don't save any information that you've entered, you will lose. So it's super important to remember to save everything. Once you've uploaded your documents here and save, you're also going to want to fill in your organization's demographics page. That simple information you fill out there, and again, save. I also want to bring note to the attention box that you see on the right. So anytime you are inside the application filling out things, this attention box will be here. And when you see this red symbol, it's letting you know each section that is blank or incorrectly filled out. And you can also come over to this side here. And if you notice an exclamation mark or point, excuse me, that means the page is incomplete or incorrect. Only when you see a check mark in a box, you will know that what you've entered and saved is saved correctly and completely. So once you finish your demographics page, you can navigate yourself back to your application. This is the part, I'm sorry that the font is so small, but this is where you get into like the application itself, right? Once you navigate yourself here, you're going to see application information. This is your start. Excuse me. This select the DHCD program for this application is where you're going to, in the drop-down menu, select operating assistance grant, technical assistance grant, and then I always like to save after that. And you'll notice that when you save it, it will change what's on this left side to now include all of the information and pages that you will need to successfully submit a complete tag application. So starting with your application information, you will enter your project name on this page or project description. You also will have spaces for your contact information. I want to note that with your contact information, there's someone that we reach out to for information about the application itself. And then there's also a section for you to enter your, I forget the technical term, your official though, someone who will, or who can sign your documents, and things of that nature. You'll also add their contact information. In terms of addresses, you want to be sure that your mailing address and your project address are not PO boxes. So we map projects and organizations, and we can't do that with a PO box. So you want to be certain that you have an actual standing address there. As far as mailing out your payments, I think well, not all of you, but we also highly encourage ACH. If you are not set up for that, we would encourage you to do that so that you will receive your funding through direct deposit and not have to wait on, a check, because that can take way more time than just directly depositing it. Let's see. So, well, let's go back a little bit, just really quickly. So you'll work your way through each of these boxes. You'll do application information, save. Your application proposed budget, you'll see the budget chart that Christine spoke of a little bit ago, and save. Your application proposed timeline and narratives is where you'll find all of the questions that you should respond to. There are character limits. We also like to, say, hey, maybe you want to check out the questions, work on them outside, come back, copy and paste them in. Just be sure of your character count, because that's something that we've run into, is that when you do paste over your narrative responses, and your character count is off, it sometimes just stops right there. So definitely pay attention to that as well. And then this is already populated, and so is this from your profile. And then once you've completed the application, each section should have a box with a check mark in it. That's how you know it's complete. You save, and then you are ready to submit, at which point you can look back on this left-hand side, scroll until you see status options, and you want to submit your application, I believe a pop-up box still comes, and then you want to confirm the submission with OK. At that point, your application should no longer be in My Task because it's submitted. However, you can still search it. You just cannot make any alterations to it. So once it's submitted, there are no more changes. So that's the short of it, I believe. We can, oh yes, I see you. I know you have something to say. We're gonna move into questions in a bit, but I think let Christine bop in really quickly.
Oh yeah, I've been keeping up with some questions in the chat, so I was just going to kind of go over those really quickly because it might be that, you know, a lot of people have these questions.
Sure.
So it's a reimbursement grant. That is correct. You are spending this money and then requesting payment from us, showing us how you spent it, and we will reimburse you for those expenses. That was one of the questions. There was another question about the start date because this, you know, applications are due in March. We'll review them April, May. Recommendations go to the secretary. I wouldn't imagine that we would start working on grant agreements until about the beginning of the fiscal year, like around June and July. So for your timeline, if everyone wants to start with a July 1 timeline, that's fine. Some of you might not be executed by July 1, and that's okay. What we're really trying to see in that timeline area is that you're doing this in 1 year. That's what's super important. If you start with a July 1 timeline in your application, but we don't execute your grant agreement until August, then we'll just shift your timeline by the 1 month, if that makes sense. I did put links into the chat for Just Communities Mapper. I see that there's some questions in regards to the enough communities. I don't believe, I do want to kind of revise what we said. I don't believe there's a mapper for enough communities, but on the enough community page, there are communities that have been designated by the Governor's Office of Children or for children as communities, enough communities. So if you can't figure that out through the website, please feel free to just send us an email outside of the training and we'll help you out with what those are. If you have multiple activities or projects under an application for TAG, that's fine. You can only submit one TAG application per organization. So I just wanted to, there is a frequently asked questions document on the TAG website. I highly recommend that you take a look there. Alyssa, I'm seeing that we do have some questions asking about some examples of projects that we've funded in the last maybe couple of years. So I don't know if you have 2 or 3 off the top of your head, that just types of projects.
Right. So like I mentioned before, like one of the examples of things that you can do, and it was technology costs. We did fund ADA compliant website updates. We've funded market studies for like housing and community development like projects to expand. We funded I just said this yesterday, the EDGE project, which helped small businesses get access to information and things that they wouldn't otherwise be able to afford the access to. And then, of course, we will fund housing projects. So not the building of it, but let's say you need someone to kind of give you the blueprints or, you know, go over. So all of the developmental stages of a capital project, we support. The building instruction, all that, not so much. So those were some of the types of things that we do fund or have funded rather recently, I would say within the last year or so.
Right, yeah. So the project management, the architect rendering drawings, studies for housing projects or larger capital projects. Again, we're going to look to see if we're funding that larger project through our capital team, our state revitalization program team. So your tag application is going to be much more competitive if it's already tied to a capital project that our department is or will be funding. So that's just something to think about. Market studies, placemaking efforts, small business support, helping with nonprofit capacity building, so salary and personnel costs. And Alyssa, I remember you stating this already, especially growing capacity. We're not looking at funding your executive director for multiple years under tag, but if you have functioned as a small team of 2 or 3 and you're looking to grow your capacity to add a 4th employee, tag is a great resource to fund that for a year, to kind of give your organization some time to raise funds to sustain that new position in the future. Websites for organizations or for programs. There's also a question in here about what counts as a Baltimore City Main Street. That you would have to look at the listing of the, I think it's 9 main streets in Baltimore City that is out of the Mayor's Office of Minority Businesses. But it's Fells Point, Federal Hill, Pigtown, Hamilton, Lauraville, Waverly, Upton, Pennsylvania Avenue, and Park Heights, I believe. I got most of them off the top of my head. But you can take a look at that. It's also on the mapper if you use the mapping tool. You can have more than one user in the portal. That's another question in our comments. Yes, you just need to get everyone who wants access to your organization's profile in the portal. They need to register as a user in the portal. And I think Alyssa showed that on this one.
Also, no, if they are made an authorized official, they have access to everything, which means they can not only see all of your documents, they can make changes to your profile. So if there's somebody you just want to see, but not to do, you should also make that known in your request. I believe there's like a notes section of, or you can always follow up, you know, if not an authorized user.
I think we got through most, if not all, the questions in the chat. So if anyone wants to come off of mute or raise their hand, we have a few more minutes that we can answer a specific question. David, I saw your hand raise.
Yes, I was just wondering, because I'm not sure it was clear to me at least. Can we write a grant that serves 2 different priority funding areas, 2 different communities? Okay, that's pretty much my question. Thanks.
Marilyn?
Yes. So for the ADA compliant websites, because that is something that we definitely have to address and quickly, how do you address the fact that maybe all those accessing the website may not be in a priority funding area? So for example, I'm with Dorchester County. We have several PFAs throughout the county, but we really need to have our website upgraded because right now it is not ADA compliant. How do you address the need to be in a PFA? Our home office is in a PFA.
I think what you would have to do in that particular application is really state how the county's website, having it ADA accessible, will benefit the various priority funding areas throughout your county, and in what ways they use your website to access information or to connect to services. So it would just, you would have to make that connection in that way.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Monica?
Hi. Yeah. Hi. Thanks. I'm just wondering, because I manage an arts district, if that would be considered along the lines of a main street or not in terms of bonus points.
Yeah, I just put that in the chat actually, sorry, but arts districts are not the same as a main street. There are a lot of main streets that are also arts districts. So I'm not sure if that's relative for yours, but for our bonus points, we are definitely
Okay.
unique to main streets.
And did you answer the other question is in terms of the capital grants that have been approved by the state, would the MSAC capital be considered that, or does it have to be through your office?
That's a good question. I think we were definitely thinking through our capital program, through our state revitalization program.
Mhm.
But I would definitely say mention in your grant that you have capital funding from Commerce through MSAC.
Okay.
I think that's would be very valuable for the reviewers to know.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, TJ.
Hi, thank you for the information. I think I and both Tiernan have the same question here in chat. So we serve an enough tract area in Frederick, but our buildings or our address is located outside of that tract, right? So how can we add a note or clarify that although we're not in a priority zone, that we are serving residents of a priority zone in this?
Yeah, I think you would have to state that. I think the application also asks for like your organization's address, and then you can give a separate address. It'll ask for a project address. So you might want to consider an address in the priority funding area that you support as your project address, which then would allow you to check that box of serving a priority funding area. That's why we have multiple places for addresses. You're typically, though, an organization's address and the project address are the same, but TJ, for your situation, it might be two separate.
Okay, and that's okay if we don't have a physical storefront location in that specific address that I'm going to be listing, right? It's just for the purposes of showing that we serve that particular area, right?
Right, and it would be really beneficial if whatever you're asking for in the application is rooted in the community in which you put the address to say, you know, we're located outside of this area. This is where we dropped the pin to say we're doing the work of this program or this project because we're doing it in this community, which is a priority funding area. If there's no through road there, if you're just using it for the priority funding area capability for the application, but the reviewer is not able to see how what you're asking us to fund is supporting that community, then it's not going to be as competitive of an application.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, were there any more? Yeah.
Selena?
Hey there. You had mentioned site control earlier, and I just wanted to make sure I understood in what instances that would be relevant. When would you require that?
There have been very small times where our legal department actually asked when groups were managing like pop-up shops in a particular area. So it was like, we need a little something to say that you're allowed to alter this in this way for this particular time. But it's very rare, which is why I said it may happen, but it's likely not to happen.
Okay, I was just yeah, I mean, I just wanted to make sure. I mean, I'm working in housing and community development, so it is often requested, but it wouldn't make sense to me to include it in this instance.
Right. Yeah, and you probably don't need it. Like I said, it's operating, so the chances are we don't. But there were a few projects in which we had to request it later on. So I would say don't worry about it for now. And then if it does end up being a thing, then you'll be told or asked, requested rather. Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure. Melinda.
Yeah, y'all, quick question. And I'm sorry if you sort of talked about this, but I want to be sure I understand it. Can we use the funds for like a sub-grant program to new small businesses starting up that are going to go into a vacant space?
Yes.
Kind of like Project Restore, sort of?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
You
Appreciate
can
it.
also use community legacy for something like Project Restore-esque too. They have a larger pot of funds. So that's something
Okay.
just to kind of consider, but TAG is definitely, it's a program that we're going to be supporting. So it's operating for the program. The program is Project Restore, the next rendition of it for you.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Sure. Angela.
Good afternoon, everyone. So my question is, so we're working on a housing project, and a result of being in the housing project, we have found that our technology infrastructure does not support executing it between contacts for volunteers and that. So would, on the technology piece of the grant, could we use that to upgrade to get a software system that's going to have the capacity for us to actually execute our mission?
Yes. I'm sorry. I know I used the ADA example because that was the one that I'm most recently
Yeah,
dealt with.
and I
Yes.
was like, do we have to be completely
No,
ADA
no.
environment because we're not a public thing? That was a whole lot. That was going to be an offline question, but thank you for answering.
Yeah, I use that example because it's the freshest example of something we funded that's in my mind, and that's where I go to the first, But yes,
Understood.
it is eligible as well.
Awesome.
Let's see, Brenda.
Yes. Hi. Quick question. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Can we apply for more than one? Like if we have two different projects, can we do two separate requests? Like for example, we have a community garden. I don't know if that's applicable for this grant, that we donate the vegetables and stuff to the community for consumption for the low income, to the food banks. And then we also have, we just also have a need to hire another person, because right now I'm by myself. So we need to hire potentially someone else to help assist move forward with another grant that we have money left over for, $100,000 grant that we need to finish up. But again, I'm a party of one, so I have kind of like two different scenarios happening.
I would say the capacity building is certainly your stronger application, just considering what's happening with TAG now. However, I'm gonna knock this one over to Christine for her input because you can have to. I usually would say it's up to your needs, but then considering how competitive things have been here, it's like, well, needs, yeah, but also what's more likely to get funded during this particular time in TAG. So let's get second opinion.
Sure.
Yeah. So Brenda, you can only submit one application. So if you're going to do one application and you want to divide, for simplicity, 50,000, you're going to ask 25 for the garden, 25 for capacity building. You would need to do it in some way like that, one application up to 50,000. I think I agree with Alyssa. I think the more competitive application would be for capacity building for your organization. Think about what other opportunities are out there for you for your garden. I think if you were doing your garden, if you were in an enough area and you could tie it to feeding children in enough communities, like there could be a through line there that would make it a little bit more competitive. So you're just gonna have to take a look at kind of the information that we've given you today and make some decisions based off of that.
Fair enough. Because I believe I have a meeting with our project manager, Jean, tomorrow anyway, as well. So she's helped us with the initial grant. So maybe I can bounce it off of her to see if we are in that needs area. So perfect. Thank you so much for the help. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Sure.
Downtown Snow Hill.
Hi, I just have I wanted to make sure I understood correctly. If we have an existing capital project, street improvement project, we can apply for an outside, like third-party A&E firm or general contractor for just the project management component under this TAP grant. Is that correct?
Correct. Yes, professional contract services consultants.
Super. Thanks so much.
Sure. Renee. No? Change your mind? Are you muted? Are you here? Okay, great. last call for questions because I don't want to keep us over time. Okay, we'll take one more. This is Marilyn.
I just wanted to know, when will this training session be posted to your website?
I have to get this information over to our folks who take care of that, but it should not be more. It should be posted by the end of the week for sure.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. And Tiernan, did I pronounce that correctly?
Hi, yes, thank you. And thank you guys for all this great info and answering all my questions. Will you all be posting an FY27 policy guide and FAQs on the website, or should we just refer to the FY26 ones that are there?
Both of those will be updated in the next couple of days.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, I think for, oh, okay, here's Renee. Wait, we have a comment. We're having mic issues. Let's see. But I did ask my question in the chat as well.
Oh, the question is, they have multiple programs that support community revitalization. Is it better to select one program or ask for program support, or is it competitive to ask for operating support for the entire organization? I think more specific is better in this environment, rather than it being very broad. You want to be real specific. Alyssa, do you have any thoughts on that?
I also agree. We cannot guarantee the the quantity, if you will, of applications that will come in. We can't guarantee that. So the more specific and concise and sure that you can be is going to be the most helpful for the reviewers to get through. So I would say definitely as specific as you can be. And we have 3 minutes left. And I don't want to run over time. I do want to leave you though with like 3 big main things that you can focus on. Just to reiterate some things that we talked about earlier. If I had any tips for you for like your standout tag application, it would be, we just said it, be project specific, right? We want you to focus on the details of your project and or program that you're applying for, rather than the mission of your organization, because we can sometimes get lost in all of the great things that you do, that you're not creating the full picture of what it is that you are requesting funding for. So that's tip 1. Tip 2 would be back to the budget. Make sure your budget states what the funds will cover and how they relate to your project. And remember that it's just 1 year, and you have to clearly demonstrate to, because it's not just myself, Christine read it, we're outsourcing all types of readers for this. So you want to be very sure to get that point across. And then the last thing would be just making sure that you align yourself or your program or project with those investment priorities. A competitive application, like I mentioned before, is going to get directly into those priorities, and you will not have to shape shift to make it work. So with those things, I wish you all good luck, whether you're ready this year or you try again next year, or however that works out for you. But give it your all, do great work. My contact information is posted here. And if you have any questions between now and closing, feel free to reach out. I will also have my calendar by the time this is posted and updated to our site. I'll also have my Calendly link available, and there may be a few more slots available between now and the time that the application closes. If you have additional questions or need a little bit more like one-on-one time for the application round specifically.